Court is in session once more here on NBA TV. Thanks for stopping by. We're at the Mandarin Oriental, Las Vegas, high above the Strip, and a little different program we have for you this time around. We've heard from the players, our guys, over and over again. We decided this time to bring in the coaches for a special coaches edition and pick some of the best basketball minds in the NBA. And I'm looking at you, Mikhail. What for? I'm Matt Weiner, or you guys feel free to refer to me as my high school coach often did, which was Hey You. Typically, that's how that works. Let's introduce our cast of characters. David Blatt, fresh from an incredibly eventful and successful first NBA season with an East title and a trip to the NBA Finals, and a veteran of more than 2 decades of pro seasons, both here in the States and abroad. Rick Carlisle, the 2002 NBA Coach of the Year, has just one losing season among his 13 as an NBA head coach, champion as a player and as a coach. Alvin Gentry, veteran of more than 700 regular season games over 12 years, armed with a title as the lead assistant with the champion Warriors, and about to embark on his first season with the New Orleans Pelicans. Lionel Hollins, the winningest coach in Grizzlies history, now entering his second season in Brooklyn, also an all-star and a champion as a player. George Karl is one of 9 coaches in NBA history to reach 1,000 wins in the regular season, now about to begin his 27th season as an NBA head coach, the 2013 Coach of the Year. And Kevin McHale, who just completed his 6th and most successful season yet as a head coach, the longtime NBA executive, and before that, of course, a 3-time champion and a Hall of Fame player. Welcome, one and all. So you all hold the title head coach, but as you all know, that means a lot of different things and wearing a bunch of different hats. So, Lionel, what does it mean to you to be a coach?
It encompasses a lot of things. I mean, all you guys probably could state the same thing. When I was assistant coach with the Phoenix Suns, I asked Jerry Colangelo, you have to be able to communicate, motivate, and you have to be flexible. And taking over and becoming a head coach, I learned that you have to be a mentor, father figure, friend figure, also a disciplinarian.
I look at coaching as a daily challenge because, I mean, every day you're being dealt something different. You're winning on a winning streak. It's a different energy than on a losing streak. It's a different energy when, you're having problems with your offense or your defense. And you prioritize is very, very important from a practice standpoint. But what Lionel says is for me, you got to wear different hats. Sometimes you got to be the bad guy. Sometimes you got to be the good guy. Sometimes you got to be the teacher. Sometimes you got to be the quiet guy sitting in the corner and watching.
So when you go to the gym on a daily basis, you talked about prioritizing things. Can you approach it as, okay, there's one thing I want to get done today more than any other?
I think it depends a lot on what time of the season that you're talking about. Early on, you're forced to address many different things. As the season goes along and you've found a rhythm with your ball club, or you're at a level of understanding with your players on what needs to be done, then you have the luxury of coming in and perhaps addressing only one thing or 1.5 things. But I think the big thing is that you have to be able to present it to your players in a way that's palatable, that's understandable, and that they will buy into.
Kevin, what's the balance between the basketball stuff and the personal stuff?
Come in every single day trying to, have your team be better, have your players be better. And I know as a player, I really appreciated coaches that I knew wanted me to be better and pushed me to be better. So there are days that you come in and, some days you jump the rear end. Some days, you pat them on the back. Like George said, there's a whole different vibe of winning 4 in a row and coming in and losing some tight games and stuff.
And one of the things that's a reality these days is you've got to be able to execute the vision of your owner. Owners are much more involved. My owner's very unique. I knew it when I walked in the door the first day. And I knew that, getting him even more involved was going to be a key to building a relationship of trust. And he has great people skills, and players really respond to him. So he's been a great conduit for me.
I know in my situations, before every practice start, I go around and I talk to every single player on the team, and I ask them, how you doing? Is everything okay? I think that's a way of eliminating the really small problems before they become big problems. And usually it's about playing time. So I always allow a guy an opportunity to come in and talk about it. And, you're never going to get everybody agreeing about playing time.
Players aren't happy with their playing time? I've never heard that before.
I think everybody will agree with that. But I think...
the guys play too much sometimes. I was like, when the guys kept playing, I'm playing too much. You can never play too much. You're going to be old one day.
Chuck Daly had one of the great quotes about players. He said, all players want the same thing. They want 48 minutes, 48 shots, and 48 million. Now 48 million doesn't sound like that.
They laugh at you. 48 million. Oh, even better stuff.
You're talking about a mid-level guy.
Mid-level guy,
The $48 million guy needs a new agent.
96 million.
Lots more to come here on Open Court Coaches Edition. On the way, the decisions that drive coaches crazy. Back on Open Court Coaches Edition. So each team's going to get roughly 100 possessions per game. That's 200 possessions, more or less, during an NBA game, which means as many decisions along the way for coaches. Even if you're not blurting something out in that moment, I know that the wheels are turning. What are the decisions, David, that will keep you up at night?
As a coach, I think everything keeps us up at night, first of all. The three main differences between being a professional player and a professional coach are when you start coaching, suddenly you worry a lot more. Secondly, you sleep a lot less. And finally, the moment you get the head coaching job, suddenly everybody knows more than you do. So you got to deal with that right off the bat.
Alvin, is there one of those game situations that even after hundreds of games, you still don't feel like you've nailed down, that just bugs you?
I think end of the game plays, to me, that's the toughest thing. You have a great player on your team, you have another guy that's going great, that usually is not. Now, what do? Do you go with your great player? He may not be having a great game. Or do you go with the guy that's going good at the moment? And I think that, to me, that becomes the toughest thing. The decisions that you make down the stretch in games of who you're going to actually go to.
The end of the game decisions are always the ones everybody talks about. Whether you should have fouled, who should have gotten the shot. The inbounds play, whether you should let them go or call timeout and take it.
But in the game stuff, one more thing, just in the game stuff, I also think, and I think all you guys will agree, you call a timeout and you sit your five guys down there and it's going to be the last shot of the game. You can look in players' faces and know who wants it and who doesn't want it. And sometimes that might be one of your best players. Just have the look that, not me this time.
I hear that all the time. How often do you see that look?
Well, I'm just going to say that's very easy. It's just like this, a bunch of guys go out or a bunch of people go out to eat dinner. Who gets the check? The guy that wants it. Usually me, by the way. So, you're looking in the eyes of guys and you kind of know, in most cases, who you can depend on.
What I think about in the game situations is I've been in 50 games, maybe 100 games, that the other coaches outcoached me for 44, 45 minutes, and I've had the better team. And I make a run, and I win the game down the stretch, and I might have made a good call or a good play at the end of the game, and that guy gets crucified. And and it's not the case. I mean, it's a long game. It's a difficult game. There's
momentum. It's a freaking altitude too. How many wins a year? How many wins a year does that work?
I'd say 4 to 5.
Wow. Yeah, I was
there are
games
4 to 6.
And that's not even talking about driving from the airport to get to the...
What do you mean? Hold on, dropping from Montana to the airport's not even in the state of Colorado.
But how many end-of-game situations are won by an offensive rebound? How many end-of-game situations are won by an extra possession? How many end-of-game situations are won by a defensive play?
Yeah, but you're talking that offensive rebound is also a missed block out.
Yeah.
And we also talk a lot about scoring at the end of the game. To me, one of the most important things is the guy throwing it in.
I was just going to say,
I mean, it's really, really important.
You learn that early on.
Who is the guy that you can count on to get it to make the right decision
What
when he
about
has the ball out of bounds?
We're all about equal with end of game situations. Everybody thinks there's this greatness in end of game situations, but the difference between the worst team and end of game situations isn't that much.
But in practice, especially with new guys, we have end of game situation where we put a bunch of guys, different guys, taking the ball out. You get down to a lot more no than yes. I mean, like, you do some guys like, oh my word, like I couldn't have that guy. You guys are wide open. He doesn't even see him, And I love to have a big guy take it out. Like I always thought that Duncan did a nice job with the Spurs because he's so big and stuff like that. You hate when your best passer is some 5'9" dude. He's standing there and they put the big guy on there to tiger the ball as Bill Fitch used to say.
The other thing, and every team does this at some point, you line up all your guys and see who can throw a baseball pass.
Yeah.
If you get a situation where you don't have a timeout. Now, watch that line of guys throwing baseball pass. You're going to see some of the worst passes you've ever seen in your life. And usually there's one or two guys that might be able to do it.
That's how you get the job, right?
That's it.
And that guy has to be fearless too. He's got to be a guy that's willing to take a chance. One of the best guys that I ever coached was Matt Barnes. Matt Barnes would take it out. He would try to get it to any guy. He was the Brett Favre of taking it out of bounds.
Well, coaches, help me with this. What happens when the guy that you want to take the shot is the guy
you want to take
the best passer? That happens to me all the damn time.
I think I know who this guy is.
Well, I'm not mentioning any names here. This is about. And we tell that guy, hey, I need you to throw the ball in bounds. He's like, no, coach, I need to take the shot.
Yeah.
What do you do then?
I think he can pass it to himself.
That ain't happening. Not in this sport.
In practice, when you're working on last-second stuff, I like to say, okay, you can play zone, you can switch, you can do whatever you want on it.
Right.
One time, let us just run it. You play straight man-to-man. Because what happens at the end of the game is you don't know what kind of defense they're going to play. You got the greatest play set up, and they come out in zone. What are you going to do? And you want to have people be able to make quick decisions knowing that they're playing zone or recognizing that they're playing zone or if they're switching, going back door and all the things. So it's a lot of preparation that gets done long before that end of the play, in the game situation. Plus, some of us have guys that, could make plays and finish buckets that other people don't have. So, there's a little bit of an advantage there, too.
Having a closer is not a bad thing. Right now. I talked to guys a lot about making plays.
Yeah.
I said, that doesn't mean you're making a 30-foot step back jump shot with 1 second. That means, in the last 2 minutes, we got to get defensive stops. You got to box out. You got to be better in the last 2 minutes. And I played enough games and, was around the league long enough. There's a lot of games, man, that first 44, 43, 44 minutes, you're trying to get your top guys involved. Like, come on, man. Their motors are going. But that last 3, 4, 5 minutes is when they lock in and say, okay, man, I'm going to win this game. And I talked to them about what they have to do in those last 3, 4, 5 minutes because so many games come down to that. And making all the plays defensively, getting the extra possession on the offensive rebound, making the great defensive play, getting a deflection, just locking the guy down and, having the guts to walk out and say, I got the guy. I don't want any help. I love when a guy looks at me and says, I got him. And I'm like, yeah, as opposed to double team the guy right away as soon as he gets it because I'm scared to death I can't guard him. That drives me nuts. And as a coach, it makes you feel good. You're like, oh, I got one guy out here that's ready for the fight. And so we talk a lot about end of games and making plays. And it's not, like I say, 30-foot, but having a guy who can make a 30-foot jumper helps a lot too.
Lots more coming up here on Open Court Coaches Edition, including the smartest players these guys have ever coached or faced. Back at the Mandarin Oriental Las Vegas for this Open Court Coaches Edition here on NBA TV. And it's a simple question for you guys. Who is the smartest player you've ever coached or faced?
I think there's three guys that really stand out that I've coached. Obviously Steve Nash. I think he had an unbelievable command of the game and understood angles and was just a really, really intelligent player. Also, Chris Paul fit into that category also. Unbelievable competitor, but really had great feel for the game. And then Andre Iguodala, I think that, he was just an incredibly smart player, multiple position player, could play defensively, can guard everything from 1 to 4. Was really, really a super intelligent player. As far as the guy that I coached against, It just happened. I think LeBron, I just think he has an unbelievable feel for the game. You know, forget about the athleticism and his size and the strength that he had, but I just think he's a really, really super intelligent player.
Well, David, I'll go right to you because he mentioned LeBron. What does his acumen allow you to do as a head coach that you just can't do with other guys, not to mention his ability?
Well, a lot of that has to do with just letting him play. You know, not trying to put him in a box, not trying to limit him to the point where he can't play intuitively and instinctively, and further because, as Coach said, you know, he's just so smart, and he has such a great feel for the game. And you know, Coach Carrill, who coached me at Princeton, he used to say, the mark of a great player is can he see? That was his comment. You know, it was very simple but very telling. You know, can the guy see? Well, that guy can see. He sees everything. You know, I don't know whether it's because he's tall. I don't know whether it's because he's so smart. I don't know whether it's because he's played so much basketball and he's taken so many mental images over the course of his career that he just gets it. But he sees. And that's, you know, that's a very, very special quality to have. His worst player ever coached is not close. Jason Kidd. Not even close. The guy was a savant on the basketball floor. And the best example, a lot of you guys have seen it. We played a game against Atlanta a few years ago. You know, we're down 2 with under a minute left. Mike Woodson is out on the floor. He's out on the floor like 3 steps, giving instructions to one of his players or pointing or something. Jason sees him, puts it in overdrive, and goes and intentionally hits Woody, knowing that it's going to be a technical foul on the coach. So they call it technical. And, you know, Jason makes the free throw. Now we're on an odd number, and we had some momentum going, and we end up stealing the game. He is the most resourceful winner that, you know, that I've ever coached by far. You know, Bird was another one, but I put him right in Bird's category, you know, for that. As far as guys I've coached against, 2 guys, LeBron James and Kobe Bryant. If you got a foul to give at the end of the quarter, and Kobe's got the ball, and you try to get the foul, he's going to get a shot up, he's going to get fouled at a 3, he's going to make you pay. I mean, he's a computer out there. And LeBron James is, you know, he might be the greatest ever, just all around. And I played against Jordan in college and the pros, and I still say he's the greatest ever. But LeBron he's the only guy that's got a chance to make it a conversation.
I got 2 guys. That I think are unsung. One's Andre Miller. Andre Miller is a guy that I think sees things, feels things, thinks things that no other player I've ever coached does. And he's not this big-time all-star type player. I think he's one of the top 5 passers ever to play the game, but it's his instincts of when to make the play and when to make the pass. And the guy today that I don't think gets enough love in this category is Tim Duncan. I think what he's done these last 3 or 4 years, where we thought he was fading into the sunset, and now his angles, his pick and roll defense, his efficiency, big guys don't get this love very often, you know, as the smartest player on the court. Andre's been close to me because he's played on a lot of teams, but I mean, I go to Sacramento, my first game, we're down 18-4. I looked on the bench. Andre's been with us for 4 hours. And he's the only guy I know. I put him in the game, 18-4 with 8 minutes to go in the first quarter, and by the time the first quarter's over, we're up 28-24. I have no idea. He didn't know no plays. He didn't know anything about it. He just knew how to play basketball.
2 guys that come to mind, Mike Bibby, who I coached in Vancouver, and Marc Gasol. Marc Gasol reminds me a lot of Walton. Walton just played in the back. He saw everything. He told everybody what was going on. If somebody was getting overplayed, he would flash without it even being a play. Backdoor, drop the pass on it, that kind of stuff. And Mark's like that. And Bibby, he from a guard perspective, we would go to breakfast on game days and talk about what the game plan was. And then he'd go out there and execute it. He'd come over and he said, Coach, you know, I know we talked about this, but, you know, I see this here. And he would be right a lot. And he would make adjustments, and he was really a competitor in that regard. From a against perspective, I mean, all these guys that you mentioned are great. For me, Chris Paul, I mean, I diagram plays during timeouts to put Chris Paul where he won't be in the way. Because he figures out what you're doing. One time he's playing for New Orleans, and we're taking the ball out of bounds, and I get him away from the ball. He recognizes the set that we're running and what we're going to do. He switches with the guy taking the ball, and he gets a steal and wins the game.
You know, you talk about Chris Paul. One of the things that's so funny is that when I was at Phoenix, we ran a play. We called an out-of-bounds play. He put one of our players in the spot that he should be in. He goes, no, you're in the wrong spot. You're supposed to be right here.
You know, for me, probably the defense had been Kevin Garnett. Kevin really just locked down the defense. He called out all coverages. He was just vocal back there. And even if Kevin made no sense, he was talking to guys like, I'm here. You know, and he was constantly ensuring. And I think part of, you know, helping players is it's a positive thing. Kevin's back there. He's talking. He was really vocal. I'll tell you a guy who I really trusted, and I coached him for a short period of time, but Charles Sprewell was the guy that Spree would come up to you and say, let's do this. Let's do that, and at really critical times, and it worked. It was a great idea. You know, you'd be thinking about, maybe we should jump that guy in a pick and roll, and Spree would say, hey, let's hit him with a spree. We should hit him with a pick and roll. Let's double team. Let's trap him. Let's blitz him. And you know, he had just a good feel. I really enjoyed Spree. Spree and I talked a lot, and he was later on in his career, and he did a nice job of just like I say, suggestions at key times. I liked it. But Kevin Garnett was special in the back of the defensive end. He was talking up a storm and helping everybody out.
Just another way a great player makes your job a little easier, I guess. Lots more coming up here, including keeping up with the ever-changing NBA. Back on Open Court Coaches Edition. Collectively, the six of you have coached, I don't even know, thousands of NBA games over decades in some cases. Your first season in the NBA was 84-85. A lot has changed since that time. You've got players on social media now. You've got analytics, which has come into the game. What is the challenge of keeping up with the changes to basketball and maintaining your own philosophies?
Wow, why do I got to start this one off?
Because you've been here the longest.
I think the bottom line of the thing that comes to my mind is communication. I mean, as we all talked about, every game, I mean, even if you're on a team that wins 60 games and you win by 20, someone's mad at you. I say it all the time. People don't understand how hard it is to win just one basketball game. I mean, you got to do so many things right, and you got to be, you know, your whole day is kind of possessed by that moment. I don't know about you guys, but I get nervous. I get scared. I mean, when I'm playing LeBron, I'm worried. I mean, you can't get 50 tonight. You know, how are we going to stop him get 50?
Yeah, if you're not nervous and scared, you shouldn't be doing this, because that's kind of the thing that I think drives a lot of us to be at a high level. You know, fear is a word that's, you know, a lot of players don't want to hear it and stuff like that. I'm pretty honest about it. You know, if you don't play with some level of fear, you know, you probably shouldn't be out there, because there's a lot that can happen out there. And I want to mention Mike D'Antoni has done things that have really changed the way we all see the game. I think he got a lot of credit for it when they were going good in Phoenix, but you know, he's been a little bit forgotten. He's educated all of us an awful lot about the importance of pace, the importance of skill, and the importance of having guys that you can trust to just play basketball.
Spacing, you know, we talked about that every single day when I was with Mike. You know, spacing, allowing opportunities for guys like a Steve Nash or any of the other guys to have an opportunity to drive the ball and have areas where they could drive it where there's open space. And that's really become a huge part of our game now, the whole spacing part, being able to drive and have open lanes and create plays for other players.
I think passing is becoming more important in our game, and rebounding, I think in a big game, you know, the rebound is still the fundamentals that still are still the most pivotal.
And with the way everybody wants to play the decision making, you know, you can't just tell players exactly what to do. I'm on the sideline. I've already told you what I can tell you. Now you got to go out there and make decisions for yourself on the fly.
Kevin, I want to ask you about analytics, because the Rockets are the fascinating marriage of an old school basketball guy and kind of a cutting edge analytical mind in Daryl Morey. How do you reconcile this new age basketball and what's sort of in your DNA?
You know, I look at basketball as I want to get the ball in the paint every single possession. I want to, you can get in there three different ways. You can drive it in there, you can pass it in there, or you can rebound it in there. All three ways collapse the defense. And then if you collapse the defense, the ball does get in the paint and you do throw it out, if you step back that much more and get an extra point, I just don't understand why you wouldn't do it. Like your range can't be improved by that much. You really are a bad basketball player. You can improve your range by 1.5 feet. The skill level's coming back, and I think that's why people play small guys now, because small guys tend to be more skilled. But I can guarantee you one thing: tall skilled beats small skilled all the time. Now, small skilled beats tall stiff all the time. But I mean, there's just no way. Like I honestly, I watched your Golden State series. I said, I would love that Draymond Green guard me. I don't care how many threes, what he was doing. I'm just like, there's just no way that guy, he couldn't grow enough to guard me. I mean,
You'll be hearing from him tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Draymond, you couldn't grow enough, young man. But,
Don't say you couldn't run with him.
You know what, that was the whole thing.
David, I want to get your perspective because of all your years internationally in other leagues. What is the NBA going to look like 5 or 10 years from now in terms of style of play?
Well, I think we've already seen a lot. The game has definitely moved towards more perimeter players, not necessarily just perimeter play, but more perimeter players that have multiple skills. They can play close to the basket. They can play far away from the basket. The greater use of the three-point shot, of course. Multiple defenses, masking defenses, ways that you can try to defend the great offensive players that we have in our league.
I think our league will go in a little cycle again where everybody will say, boy, we have to have bigs to win. But right now, you have to have, skilled.
I think what you said here is so true, because if one of these big guys that just got drafted becomes dominant on the inside, everybody will have to have people that can guard him. Draymond Greens of the world will not be able to guard those guys. If Shaq was still playing, you got to find a big guy that's got enough footwork and enough girth to deal with Shaq. As much as you want to play small, you're going to have that big guy to guard that guy.
The dominant big man, the future dominant big man, is going to be able to guard on the perimeter. That's going to be the other thing that's going to happen.
Well, some of these guys are coming in. The young guys coming in, they move their feet. They're able to switch out.
Anthony Davis can guard on the perimeter.
Yeah, I mean he can step out and guard a guard, and all you got to do is to be able to guard him for 3 dribbles. And most of the big guys that's coming in now are pretty skilled guys as far as footwork and things like that. They're able to do that. That's going to change the game when you can get a big guy that can step out and guard a guard, for those 3 dribbles.
One thing will remain constant. Chuck Daly always said this: to win a championship, you've got to have at least one MVP candidate. And if you have 2 MVP candidates, you got a huge advantage. Well, Shaq and Kobe, they were together. That's one reason they were so dominant. And that's not going to change. That having that great player, what you guys had with Curry this year against LeBron. I mean, if you guys had been full strength, it would have been an even more interesting series, and it was great as it was.
Coming up, the coaches these coaches have admired most. Back in Las Vegas with a half dozen of the greatest coaching minds in the NBA today, all of whom have been influenced by, I can't even imagine, dozens of coaches going back to their high school careers. So who are the coaches you think about as your greatest influences?
I'm going to mention 2 guys that were very influential for me and historic coaches. The first is Bill Fitch, who Kevin played for many years, and he won a championship in Boston. Coach Fitch was my coach in New Jersey for a month. My last go-around as a player, I played for a month, and then it was like December 1st, I got a phone call. Hey, Rick, it's Coach on the phone. I knew it was happening. Roy Hinson was coming back for an injury, and I was going to get cut. And he got on the phone, he said, well, you're waived. And he kind of started making a joke, and I was like, listen, so I started thanking him. He goes, no, just wait a second. He goes, I only have one assistant coach, and he only had one assistant coach at the time. He said, if you're interested,
it wouldn't be a whole lot of money, but we got an assistant coaching job that I would offer you. So I was done as a player, you know, and had been done for many years, really. If you really want to be honest about it. And so that was the opportunity of a lifetime. And so I worked for him for 3 years, and then he resigned and Chuck Daly came in. I was with Chuck Daly for 2 years. And Chuck is, you know, he has our greatest award in coaching named after him, the Chuck Daly Lifetime Achievement Award. And, you know, being with Coach Fitch for my first 3 years and Chuck Daly for 2 years, you know, the wisdom is endless. Chuck was brilliant with people, with players. He was the original coach of the Dream Team. And if you can imagine trying to meld that group, all those guys, the MVP caliber guys, into a functional team as talented as they were. But he had a great plan. He switched the starting lineup every game except Jordan. Jordan played all the games, started all the games. But he was brilliant.
First guy that comes to mind for me is a guy that most people here don't know, Zeljko Obradovic. He's a Serbian that coached in Greece for many, many years, won 8 European championships. And he was just a brilliant, brilliant basketball mind that had the ability to impact on the game as a coach more than anyone that I've seen.
I'd have to say, you know, the guy that had the biggest influence on me is Larry Brown. You know, I've kind of known him since I was about 18 years old, and you know, he's a guy that's unbelievable, knows the game. You know, won on every level that he's ever been on. I think he's a tremendous basketball mind. Like I said, he's been an unbelievable influence to me. The other guy is really Doug Collins. I mean, I worked for Doug when he was at Detroit. I think he's the most intelligent person I've ever been around in my life.
It's hard for me not to talk about Coach Smith. You know, we lost him this year. And I can't. When I get in trouble and my thoughts on basketball, I go back to Carolina. I go back to my days with Coach, and I was a high school basketball player, was a scorer, and he taught me to be a point guard. And, you know, and ever since then, I think that's been the key to it. There's two other guys I think are really important, though. I think Don Nelson and I, when I was getting into coaching, he was kind of the innovative guy in the league, going small and playing small ball. And then another guy that I'm going to mention is a guy that I was a friend when I was in high school. And he's an assistant coach, and that's Tim Gergeridge. I think Tim Gergeridge is a guy that, if I didn't have him, I would have made some mistakes. I probably wouldn't be here today because he knew how to connect with me when I was doing wrong. And sometimes a great assistant is as important as maybe a head coach.
Kevin, who do you think of when you think of influences on the way you coach?
Well, high school coach, again, I think Gary Yankton never coached in the pros, and he did a great job of just fundamentally turning you into a basketball player. He did all the drill work. He was a John Wooden kind of disciple. He had station work every single day, so I was a big guy, but you did all the guard work. You did all kinds of work, and he had a huge influence on me as how I played and how I looked at the game. Bill Fitch, you mentioned Bill Fitch. My first few years with Bill Fitch in the NBA was we played a pace game with Bill. It was always played through the big coming. The trail big was always open. You played to the weak side through him, and I still use that in our offense. The essence of our offense is playing through the trail big, who still is always open. You can play and get to the opposite side with him. And you know, a guy that I just enjoyed playing for so much was Casey Jones. He just made the game fun to play for. Like, you know, basketball, the NBA is a grind. You play 82 games, you go through it. There was always a joy of being around Casey and the way he approached everything and the confidence he had in you and his undying, like, just confidence that you were his guy. And when you went to war with him, it was just flat out you were going to war with the guy.
Lionel, is there a coach in your past whose words you hear coming out of your mouth?
Dr. Jack. Dr. Jack, when I first got the job in Memphis and I went to training camp, he came and spent the whole week with me. And he always talked about fundamentals. Treat them like they know nothing. Don't think and assume that they know anything. And I try to keep that in mind. I've been fortunate. I mean, I was drafted and played for Lenny Wilkins, and then Dr. Jack, Then I get traded to Philly, and Billy Cunningham is the head coach, but Chuck Daly is there. And then eventually I go play for Chuck Daly in Detroit, and then I end my career with Bill Fitch. Now, I have some Bill Fitch stories now. Bill Fitch was, you know.
Yeah, I don't know if we want to go there.
I was the point guard. I was with Phil Ford and John Lucas. The three of us were together. And he calls it his Geritol game because we were all at the end of our careers. And, you know, we'd come out and we'd go to run a play. And he goes, Hollins, what are you doing? You're in the wrong spot. So I would move over. And then the next day we'd go through dummy offense. And I'd start over here. And he goes, Hollins, where are you? You're supposed to be over here. So after that, he says, okay, we're going to run such and such a play. And I would raise my hand. And he said, what the heck do you want? And I said, I just want to know where I'm supposed to be before we start. So you don't yell at me. You know? But he was great. He is one of the most underrated coaches in the league.
Got kind of a grab bag segment coming up. Prepare yourselves for this. Final segment here on Open Court Coaches Edition. I have a feeling we're going to do this again at some point. Good stuff from all of you guys. We're going to wrap it up with your best coaching story. And I know from being around you guys over the years, coaches have a million stories, not all of which are suitable for television, but give it a shot.
Most of them aren't suitable for television. Now, the best coaching story I ever heard. It's worth it. I wasn't there, but it's the best coaching story I've ever heard. So I got to tell it. Red Auerbach, they're playing up in Syracuse. And back then, even when I played, there wasn't security around. Everybody, you know, there are guys who tap you on the back and say, guys that you know would say, how you doing? You'd say, yeah, you can't. I'm playing a game. Like, you know, you leave me alone. So people are always behind you. There was a guy that would come in the huddle and he would just start yelling at Red Auerbach. And he would feel like the parts of players, and he would start saying, Auerbach, you suck. You know, he just start getting into him. So Red tells everybody, hey, when we sit down, he goes, just let that guy, you know, poke his head in there. It doesn't tell me anything. But he pokes his head there, and Red just punches him dead in the nose. Just knocks him down. And so everyone on the team goes like, dang. And Red had enough of that. And then, so the guy, of course, gets the cops. He wants to get an assault charge against him. And they have the baggage carts that are going out, and Red goes between like 3 or 4 bags in there, and he kind of scrunches down. They get him on the bus and they get him out. That is the best coaching story ever. He just punches a dude, because there's always guys you want to hit in the head. And every time I hear a guy heckling me, I'm going like, I gotta pull Red out right there.
Don't do it, Kevin. Don't do it. George? You know, when you bring up the stories, I think about the CBA. My days in the CBA, and I was coaching in Great Falls, Montana, and the owner bailed on the team about mid-January, and we had like 2-3 months left in the season. And the league office is trying to figure out how we're going to survive. And I had to go in front of the school board begging them to cut our rent from $1,000 a game down to $200 a game. But we decided we had to bring in the chicken. We brought him in for 3 days, one in Alberta, Canada, one in Great Falls where we were playing, and one in Billings, Montana. And we played like 3 games in a row to raise enough money to survive the season. And Ted, I think Ted's last name is Giannopoulos or something like that. And we couldn't pay him his total bill. We had to cut his cut. But I mean, CBA for me is kind of my foundation at the beginning in the league. And there's so many crazy stories about CBA basketball.
Couldn't pay the San Diego chicken, Rick. There's a little perspective.
Can I go last?
Sure, if you like.
I'd like to go last on this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Val?
Well, I don't have very many stories because I wasn't a very good player, but I do have one from my college days. I went to school at Appalachian State, played for Pete Maravich's dad my first 2 years. Press Maravich played for Bobby Crimmins my last 2 years. I just remember we were playing a game at Richmond, University of Richmond, and, I was one of those guys on the bench, and so every time he looked down, somebody was in foul trouble, I would kind of, lean out a little bit so that, I was in his sight line. And so finally he said to me, he goes, Alvin, you see the Richmond spider over there, the mascot, it's got the 8 arms and it's like, flapping around. He said, when they put him in the game, I'll put you in the game. So that's the kind of player I was.
To the best of my knowledge, the spider never did get in.
He didn't get in.
See, we're playing the Milwaukee Bucks, and I was a good defensive player, and I'm on Brian Winters, and he's torching me. He winds up with 43 for the game, and it's a close game, and we get down the fourth quarter, and Dr. Jack calls timeout, and he says, Herm, you go get Twarzik, and you take Brian Winters. Trey, you take Quinn Buckner. And I was like, no, I got him. He said, no, you guard him enough tonight.
David, and preferably in English, because I know a lot of your basketball stories are probably in other languages.
Well, I got a few, but one that I remember particularly well, I played for the great Pete Carell at Princeton, and you know, Coach Carell, he was rough on you. I mean, there wasn't an easy day of practice. There wasn't an easy moment in the game. I mean, he was really, really hard on all of us. We had a tall player. He wasn't really, really skilled, but you know, if you got a guy 6'11" at Princeton, he's gonna play. He's got to play. And Pete just, you know, he just rode this guy mercilessly. I mean, I felt sorry for the guy. You know, he didn't let up on him, and I can still remember running through our dummy offense, you know, and that was pretty intense. You know, Pete wanted to be full speed all the time, and you know, we're running our stuff, and he used to smoke his cigar in the middle of practice. So you'd be going through dummy offense, going through these big puffs of smoke, you know, the coughing and choking and whatever, but you know, you had to keep going. Stops us from running our dummy offense, pulls the big guy aside, just getting right into him. You know, the guy standing, looking down at Pete. Pete's about 4'6", you know, just looking straight down, can't say anything, you know. All of a sudden, Pete says, put out your hand. The guy puts out his hand. Says, open it wider. He opens it wider. He takes his cigar, and he drops the ashes in his hand, closes his hand, and says, maybe that'll light a fire under your butt. And that is a true story.
You liked it to go last.
Yeah, this is really classic Chuck Daly type situation. And it was my second year with Chuck in New Jersey. We were in a suite over at the Sheraton Meadowlands talking about training camp, which was coming up in 3 or 4 days. And so the phone rings, and it's Willis Reed, who was our GM at the time, talking to Chuck about, hey, I just signed Dwayne Shinsis. Can I send him over there for you guys to talk to him? And Chuck's like, yeah, sure. Okay, send him over. So, you know, Shinsis was kind of a polarizing figure because of his college career and so on and so forth. He had kicked around the NBA a little bit, but he's a very talented guy. So he walks in, he knocks on the door, comes in, and I mean, he's taller than tall. I mean, he's like 7'3" or 7'4". So he walks in, and he had a haircut. And Chuck goes, so you got your haircut, look good. He goes, oh, thanks. And then Chuck, in Chuck's own way, he said, let's get to the heart of the matter. He goes, now, there's been a lot of things that have happened with you over the years, and, you know, I know you just came from Sacramento. And so Shins just stopped right there, and he goes, well, see, things were going along, and then, you know, we got to a certain point, and then the players got together to decide whether or not to get Dick Motta fired or not, and so Chuck Daly goes, stop right there. He goes, I don't know how this is going to work out with you here, because I happen to think it's a good risk, because I've been a fan of yours, and I've seen you play. He said, but I only ask one thing of you. When they have the meeting here in New Jersey to decide whether to get me fired, just promise me you'll vote yes.
Great stuff. Rick, Lionel, Kevin, Alvin, David, George, great to have all of you here. Let's do it again. Good stuff. Open Court Coaches Edition from Las Vegas. Thanks for being there, everybody.